Imagine this. A woman finds a mysterious red door hidden in an old house. She puts on a bridal gown hanging there and steps through into a world no one can escape. What if everything you thought you knew about her story was about to change? This is a tale of family secrets, dark deals, and a haunting choice that will leave you questioning what's real. Just when you think you've seen it all, bam, you won't believe what happens next. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Dropping a like and a comment is the least you can do to show some love. And like we always say, even if some stories seem the same, they ain't never the same when I'm the one telling them. In a quiet village wrapped in mist and shadow, guests drifted in for Peg's wedding, but something about them felt off, like whispers trapped in the wind. When Peg asked Dythy who they were, he shrugged, eyes dark with doubt. They didn't belong, yet they danced and drank as if born from the soil itself. Later, as Peg touched up her face, a goat appeared, staring with eyes too cold, too knowing, brought silently by those strangers. Then, just like a breath fading in the night, Peg vanished without a trace. Dythy searched every corner of that ancient village, but all that remained was her wedding ring, cold and heavy with a silence that screamed. Some say when the earth takes what it's owed, it leaves behind only shadows, and bad luck for those who dare ask why. Years slipped by like dry leaves on a forgotten path. In a cramped apartment far from that haunted village, a woman stood alone, dressed in bridal white, softly singing a lullaby only she could hear. When her eyes met her reflection, something dark twisted deep inside her, an ancient crack spreading silently through her soul. Without hesitation, she hanged herself. Weeks later, her daughter Shu got the call, the grim summons to gather what remained. She arrived with her girlfriend Mila, steeling herself to sift through cold memories and colder silence. Their bond was frostbitten, broken by years of distance and unspoken blame. Some wounds run so deep, even death can't thaw them. In the shadow of her mother's end, Shu faced a legacy as heavy as stone. As Shu read through her mother's final messages, the old door creaked open like a breath from the grave. A small wooden cross inside began to glow faintly, a soft, eerie pull tugging at her soul. She stepped closer, drawn by the light. But just as it flared brighter, Mila's voice shattered the spell. Shu blinked. It had been nothing but a dream. Still shaking, she stepped outside for a smoke, the cold night wrapping around her like a shroud. Then came the message, a new job. She told Mila she had to go to a remote village in Ireland to care for an old woman lost to time. Without much more than a glance, Shu left Mila behind, abandoning the remnants of her life to chase shadows in a place where darkness waits patiently. Some journeys don't ask for permission, they take what they want. When Shu arrived in the village, a boy passed by, dragging a goat that moved like a shadow slipping through fog. He stared too long, eyes hollow as a crow's. She said nothing, just kept walking. She found the house, knocked, and instead of a welcome, the woman inside urinated on the doorstep before darting back inside like a creature hunted by its own fears. Shu forced the door open, stepping into a silence thick as ancient earth. Her eyes caught a strange red door, marked with a horseshoe, an old charm, or a curse disguised. As she watched, the woman scattered shards of metal, trying to trap her in invisible snares. But Shu gathered the pieces with calm hands, breaking the circle quietly, like a ghost slipping through a net. Finally, the woman's voice cracked through the gloom. Her name was Pei, and with that name came a darkness older than the village itself, waiting to swallow them both. Later, as Shu helped Peg change her clothes, she noticed deep scars carved into her back, like dark rivers running beneath pale skin. Peg's clothes hung inside out, as if stitched by some restless hand. Not long after, the nursing agency called, a cold reminder that Peg's mind was tangled in confusion, paranoia, and delusions. A site visit loomed close. Until then, Shu was on her own. That evening, their voices dropped low, shadows filling the room. Shu asked about the faded wedding photo. Peg said Dythy had taken his own life, a secret swallowed by silence and sorrow. Then came Peg's bitter truth about the hard life of Irish women, a life stitched with sacrifice and fading hope. Shu said nothing, but shared her own story instead. She showed Peg a photo of Mila and spoke of their wedding plans. Peg's eyes widened at the news Mila was pregnant. Shu smiled softly, explaining they had used a sperm donor, a fragile new life born from choice, not blood. In that small room, two women stood at the crossroads of old pain and fragile hope, both carrying their own ghosts. Before bed, Shu spotted nails scattered like spilled bones near the red door. She bent down, gathering them quietly, then repaired the broken wood herself, stitching the house back together, one nail at a time. Later, as the warm water washed over her, a soft whisper floated through the house, prayers tangled in shadows. She stepped out, chasing the sound through dim halls until it slipped away inside the mirror's cold glass. Suddenly, a sharp shout tore through the silence from Pei's room. Shu's heart hammered as she rushed in, only to find Peg fast asleep, the room untouched, and the darkness waiting. Some screams echo in empty rooms, where no one dares to answer. The next morning, Shu was making breakfast when Peg silently slipped behind her, sprinkling salt over her plate, a quiet curse that ruined the meal. Shu said nothing. Soon after, she found Peg's medications tossed in a bin, thrown away like worthless talismans. Disappointed but not surprised, Shu gathered the empty boxes and set out for the village to replace them and fetch food. At the shop, the owner's eyes drilled into her, heavy with suspicion. He asked about her connection to Peg. Shu kept her tone polite, but before she could answer, a local woman named Miab stepped forward, smoothing the rough edges like a whispered prayer. In villages like this, strangers are watched like wolves in the night. Trust is earned in shadows, or not at all. On the walk home, Miab led Shu through a narrow field, a hidden path swallowed by tall grass. They passed a strange yellow house, its name crudely painted on a hedge, like a warning carved in green. Back at the house, Peg's voice cut sharp as a knife. She scolded Shu for removing the nails from the red door, blaming her for letting a rat slip inside. Shu swallowed her pride, apologized, and quietly hammered the nails back into place, sealing the door like a spell she didn't understand. In places cursed by old fears, even small cracks invite the darkness to crawl inside. That night, sleep dragged Shu down into a heavy, suffocating darkness. In her dream, she stood inside the yellow wake house, where silence clung like fog. A woman washed clothes without a sound, while shadowy figures wearing full masks lurked in the corners. Then her mother lay still inside a coffin, pale and quiet. But as Shu leaned closer, her mother's cold hand shot out and grabbed hers, pulling her into something worse than death. Shu jolted awake, sweat slick on her skin, heart pounding like a drum of warning. Without thinking, she slipped to Pei's room and sat quietly in the chair beside her, waiting for the nightmare to follow. Some ghosts don't stay buried. They reach through the veil to drag you down. Peg woke and flicked on the lamp, the dim light casting long shadows across the room. She told Shu the dark truth of the house. On her wedding day, guests had arrived with faces hidden behind full masks. They didn't come to celebrate. They came to take her. They tortured her, dragging her into the black depths beneath the house. Her husband, Daithi, had made a terrible deal to bring her back, but the price was unforgiving. Shu listened, silence heavy between them. The story felt like a nightmare stitched from old legends. Then Shu rolled up her sleeve, revealing a scar on her hand, a cruel mark left by her mother, punishment for a prayer gone wrong. That scar shaped her life. It was why she had run, why she never returned, why she feared the woman who gave her life. Peg's eyes dropped to the scar. For the first time, something softened inside her. She whispered, "Come lie beside me. No one should sleep alone in a house like this." In the quiet between confessions, two broken souls found fragile company against the creeping dark. The next morning, Peg revealed a secret she had never shared before. The dark entities that haunted the house feared three things: real metal, salt, and urine. That's why she had scattered nails, salted the food, and, well, done what she did the day they met. Shu listened, silence folding around the strange truth, trying to piece it all together. Later, curiosity pulled her to the red door. She opened it and descended into a shadowed cellar. Inside, dusty photos, yellowed newspapers, and old clippings sprawled out, each one whispering Pei's past, her pain, her nightmare made flesh. Shu's heart sank. This wasn't just a story, it was real. But then the door slammed shut behind her, trapping her in the cold dark. She scrambled to open it, but it held fast. Turning around, her breath caught. Her mother stood there, silent, watching like a ghost of grief and warning. A long, heavy moment stretched between them. Then, just as suddenly, the red door creaked open. When Shu looked back, her mother was gone. In houses built on fear, the past never lets go. It waits in the shadows, patient and hungry. Shaken, Shu stumbled back upstairs, her hands trembling as she grabbed Pei's pills and swallowed them herself, desperate to quiet the panic roaring in her chest. Outside, the boy with the goat appeared again. This time, he asked about the missing animal. Shu snapped, cold and sharp. "Leave me alone." She wasn't in the mood for riddles or village whispers. Later, a box arrived from Mila, her mother's old things. Clothes, papers, ghosts wrapped in dust. Shu was already frayed, and the timing twisted the knife deeper. She lashed out at Mila over the phone. Harsh words burned between them, sharper than any wound. When the past claws its way back, even love can turn to ash. Still unsettled, Shu went to the local hospital, using Pei's name to get more medication. She took the pills, then tried to erase her mother's last message. But no matter how hard she tried, that message clung to the screen like a curse. Back at the house, the agency visitor finally showed up. Peg was furious, begging Shu not to let her inside. But Shu opened the door anyway. "Come on in." As the visitor searched for the key to Peg's room, her behavior twisted strange, like a shadow slipping through cracks. When the door finally swung open, she was gone. No goodbye, no footsteps, just vanished into thin air. Shu's breath caught as the house seemed to shift around her, walls bending, shadows deepening. Something was different now, something waiting. In places where darkness lingers, reality is the first to break. Shu returned to the red door, her hands trembling as she snatched Pei's file. But the pages weren't about Peg anymore. They were about her mother, dark secrets inked in shadows. Downstairs, a slow pressure pushed at the red door, like a breath trying to squeeze through the cracks. Shu slammed it shut, but the door creaked back open, again and again, a maddening rhythm she couldn't stop. Behind her, Peg appeared, her voice low and calm. "You need to leave this house by tomorrow. When ancient doors won't stay closed, it's not just the past that wants in, it's the doom that follows." Far away, Mila's phone buzzed with a message from the agency. Shu hadn't reached out since her mother died. Something was wrong, more than just silence on the other end. Back in the village, Shu found the yellow house empty, abandoned like a forgotten wound. The boy with the goat stood there, eyes empty, and repeated her own harsh words. But his voice was hollow, like a wind whispering through dead trees. At the hospital, waiting for her last dose of medication, Shu opened her book and found letters that matched her mother's final haunting message. Across the room, a woman watched her silently and then pointed out the one small thing Shu hadn't noticed. Her sweater was inside out. When even your clothes turn against you, you know the darkness has already crept inside. Shu slipped out of the hospital without the pills, her hands trembling as she walked to the village shop. The moment she stepped inside, every head turned. Their eyes didn't just watch, they pierced, holding a secret too dark to name. Quiet laughter rippled like a curse in the stale air. She fled the shop, heart pounding like a drum in a forgotten ritual, confusion clawing at her mind. The world had twisted into a shadow play where nothing felt real anymore. On the lonely walk home, she didn't notice her leg dragging behind her, crippled and heavy like a chained ghost. And just a breath behind, her mother's restless spirit followed, silent, patient, waiting. But when Shu dared to look back, the road was empty. Some shadows don't need to show themselves to tighten their grip. Back in the dim quiet of the house, Peg opened the box Mila had sent, her fingers trembling as they brushed over a forgotten token. A truth long buried clawed its way back. A silent echo revealing Shu was her granddaughter, the bloodline marked by old curses and darker debts. Years ago, Daithe's pact had come with a cruel price. The payment was never Peg herself. It was their unborn daughter, offered to shadows that lurk just beyond the firelight. But Peg had cheated fate, letting the child slip away, running far, raising her where darkness dared not follow. Now the debt was a hungry thing again, knocking at the door with a cold breath. This time, it wasn't just Peg or Shu they wanted. It was the next in line, the fragile thread that would bind the curse anew. Blood is a chain that no prayer can break, only delay. Outside, the wind twisted like a serpent's hiss, carrying whispers from masked figures gathering like shadows summoned by the moon's cold stare. The old bell tolled sharp, a sound slicing through the heavy air. The sight visitor had returned, her voice a chilling chant beyond the door, a looped prayer or curse. "I won't bite you, no." But this time, Shu's hand stayed firm on the latch, her heart a stone in her chest. She did not open the door, because some things that knock are better left outside. Whispers that promise kindness but carry the taste of venom. Fear is the lock. Silence is the key. Downstairs, Peg moved with the weight of sorrow pressing her steps. A sacrifice made once more, a soul offered to hungry darkness. The red glow of the basement swallowed her as she vanished into its depths. Dithie waited there, silent and cold, a grim sentinel for deals long broken. The door slammed behind her with a finality like a grave closing. When Peg stumbled back, bloodied and broken, her eyes told Shu everything. They had rejected her, but their hunger had only grown. Now, they wanted Shu. Desperation drove Shu into the village, but the world had shifted beneath her feet. The shop lay shuttered like a tomb. Niamh's face turned away like a woman afraid to see what waits beyond the veil. Even the boy with the goat wore a mask, an eerie Ed Sheeran mask, a cruel parody of humanity, joining the faceless crowd that tightened around her like the noose of an old folktale. The night had become a dance of shadows, and Shu was the final step toward doom. One by one, masked figures emerged from the shadows, their footsteps silent but relentless as they followed Shu through the twisting village streets. She ran with a pounding heart, but they stayed close, never faltering, never letting her escape. By the time she reached the house, they were right behind her, like ghosts closing in. Shu and Peg rushed upstairs and locked the door, breathless and trembling. Outside, strange prayers began to echo softly, rising from the mirror's depths, low, haunting murmurs that twisted time and memory. Shu stepped closer to the glass, and suddenly, in the reflection, time collapsed around her. She saw her childhood again, the punishment, the whispered prayers, the sharp sting of pain. And then she saw her mother, P, reaching out, eyes full of sorrow and love. P watched Shu slip away from her grasp, and with quiet resolve, she chose the only path left. To protect her granddaughter, she gave her life. A few moments later, a voice whispered from outside. It sounded like Mila, soft, urgent. "Shu, where are you?" Inside, Shu remained frozen, unsure whether to open the door or believe Mila was really there. Yet something unseen pulled her forward, and she stepped outside. There lay Mila's ring on the ground, her car parked just ahead with the door wide open. Shu glanced back at the red door. Draped over it hung a bridal gown, gently swaying in the breeze. She reached out to touch it. The moment her fingers brushed the fabric, the red door creaked open. Without hesitation, she stepped inside. Shu slipped into the gown and crossed the threshold into the shadowed world below. There was no fear now, only calm acceptance. She was no longer fleeing from her fate. On the hill above, masked figures waited, silent and unmoving. One wore horns, another stepped forward and placed something on her head, a crown or something like it. Then without warning, blood began to stream from her eyes. Moments later, the red door swung open one final time. Mila ran out, crying and screaming, calling Shu's name, but the story ends there. Shu never returned. What would you do if you stepped through a mysterious door and never came back? Would you fight to uncover the truth or run from the darkness chasing you? Drop a like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I want to hear how you'd face this haunting story.